plant-based butter.
Yeah. That's what the world's coming to. That too. That too.
I'm waiting for 6:29, no, 6:30. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to council for the annual meeting, 2024. It's fairly long agenda, so we'll get right at it. We have a motion to accept the agenda, moved by Way, seconded by Thurston. Any additions to the agenda? Seeing none, a couple, under court section, another, identifiable individual and one about, potential purchase or sale amount. As amended, all those in favor of the agenda? Opposed, that's carried. Any declaration of continuing interest in the general nature thereof? Seeing none. November 5th meeting minutes of council, moved by Booker, seconded by Pickard. Any errors or omissions? Councilor Yitma, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On page 12 of the minutes, resolutions 17, 18, and 19 all are indicated as being defeated, and yet in the agenda item number 5, clerk's report, letters of support were sent for a number of those items.
Okay. Okay. Anything else?
That's what I have.
I noticed it was wrong. Anything further? All those in favor is amended? Opposed, that's carried. Special council meeting on November 12th, moved by Pickard, seconded by Gillis. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Business arising, CL 65, anything you want to say, Julie?
No, nothing to add, not the question.
Any questions in council? Seeing none, do we have a motion? Moved by Way, seconded by Bugner, result, Council Defendant, street report to CL 65, 2024, summary of staff action related to business writing from the minutes of November 5th, 2024 as information. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. 6:35, Ken Whitcar. We have you up for an appointment, so come on up, and Dan, it's Dan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, come on up.
Good evening, folks. My name is Dan Molinaro. I'm currently president of the Ottawa County Trail Council. And we were here last year, so thank you for inviting us back. It's been a pretty good year. We only have one major flood to deal with on the Beachville Trail. And if you are on our website, you probably saw the pictures of the major flooding that occurred on the trail, which we had to do a lot of repairs, fix it, get the soft ground fixed. Our biggest, I'll let Ken talk about expenditures and things, but if you haven't been on that trail recently, it's worth for a little hike. We did put a memorial bench in for Glenn Burrow a couple months ago. As you know, Glenn serviced that trail for about 20 years or so, did a lot of work on it and passed away this past year. So the family and some contributors put together some money and we purchased a memorial bench and put it in its favorite spot on one of the bends in the river. It's a delightful spot, and there are photos of that and the view if you want to go to our website or Facebook page. I'll turn it over to Ken.
Thanks. Well, as Dan mentioned, although the trail is most of the time in very good shape, we do normally get spring flooding, and I think one of the pictures I sent that was in the package there showed you the extent of the flooding that we do experience on the trail. And the trouble is, as we have a screenings and very light aggregate surface on the trail, the velocity of the water that comes down the Thames River puts large divots into the trail, which makes it unsafe. In fact, there can be as much as almost a foot deep with the water flow over the trail. So obviously it's a safety issue and an aesthetic issue. So what we do is, as soon as we can get on the trail, we hire a loader, a 1 cubic yard loader from a local contractor with the driver. And we also stockpile screenings and A1A material, I think it's called, from Carmeuse. Carmeuse give us as much material as we want, so they're very philanthropic. But we do have to pay for the trucking, and I did actually mention it was $250 a truckload in the submission here, but in fact it's now, like most things, it's gone up to $350 a truckload, but that's neither here nor there. And then we obviously have the cost of the rental for the loader and the driver, which normally runs at about $1,250 to $1,500 a day, depending on how many hours we need him for. But it's impossible to do it manually. You can't use wheelbarrows and rakes and shovels, so we have no choice but to have a mechanized solution to the problem. This year we had a very unusual set of circumstances. Is in addition to the spring repairs that we did, I think we put about 20 tons of screenings onto the trail in the spring to recover from the flooding. We had a early summer flood, which you remember if we had that. Remember we had that huge inundation around about May, June time, which also damaged the trail quite extensively. So again, we had to have the loader and the driver out, and we had to put, I think probably it was again about 18 tons of material onto the trail to fill in the divots and make it safe again. So this essentially is the essence of our request on you, is that it's obviously very expensive. It's very time consuming for volunteers, and we only just pay the loader driver, that's all. We do all the raking and the shoveling ourselves. So then what I essentially gave to you was a budget for what we see as our remedial work in 2025, assuming that it's very similar to what we saw in 2024. If we don't use the material for the trail, it's stockpiled and it's always available to us at any time. So it's never wasted. So the only thing that additional expense we get is to call on the loader and the driver and our volunteers to come out and help. So that's really our ask for 2025. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Ken. Any questions for Ken or Dan? I haven't been on the trail this year, actually. I'll have to get out there quickly because it's too much winter.
Well, David, you'd be interested to know, it's expertly mowed.
No other questions for council? Well, we're working on the budget right now, so hopefully by the end of the year, we can give you an answer. So
That would be wonderful.
thanks for all your work. We'll see you again.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you want to start early?
I'd be glad to.
Okay, hope you want up with the urban stormwater system operations and financing options. So. Just to follow up to the public meeting and
Yeah.
take it away.
Well, thanks a lot. It's great to be here tonight. And so council considered on July 9th my initial report on the options, and then you directed that we do some public consultation, which we did on September 18th, and a number of you were there. I'm here tonight to discuss that public consultation and to recommend some next steps on this project. So just to first go over a bit about public consultation. I've done probably hundreds of public meetings. I thought it was a good public meeting. Certainly was interest. About 48 people signed in. There was more of that there. 48 signed in and there was 13 comment sheets. I think that's pretty average for a public meeting like that size. So I've in my report, which has been circulated, I did what I call summary feedback. There's a few individual problems in there that I think should be dealt with individually, aren't really about the financing. So a lot of people did say at the meeting that we should have a better financial plan. And it's kind of interesting because in my report, which we discussed in July, I actually did recommend that. And I think that the timing is such that we could actually do that in parallel with the bylaw if we're going, if council decides we're going to go forward. Second thing was a lot of people don't want to pay for work in what they call the development areas of Mount Elgin. So that was a pretty common theme. Taxation, they'd like this to be paid by taxation, or developers should pay for the stormwater on cleanout was quite a common comment, and there was a concern about what the cost would be for properties that are larger than 0.4 hectare or 1 acre. So in my report for tonight, I did talk about all these things. So I agree that a financial plan should be done at some time, and concurrently with the bylaw, if council chooses to do a bylaw, I think is a good plan. It'd confirm the financial plan that I put together, which I say isn't a fulsome one, it's based on my best experience. And I think my estimate of the revenue would be good, but what is the cost for maintenance over time and eventual replacement of some of those pipes? Could do a better job of looking at that for sure. I do agree that Mount Elgin should have a higher rate than the other 4 communities. And that was talked about at the meeting, and I don't know, I saw that coming ahead, and I think that was a good comment, and it is my recommendation that we go forward with a higher rate for Mount Elgin. On taxation, this is really for council to decide how you want to go ahead and pay for the cost of stormwater cleanup, and those costs are here. Like, you know, we've got to look at Mount Elgin, and I believe actually is the project getting done this week?
I'm not sure, Dan, we line that up? Yeah.
Yeah, some work on that is started, and somehow you're gonna have to pay for it, and council could decide to do this under general taxation. But that is contrary to the use of the Drainage Act and user pay that you're using everywhere else. And the whole idea of developers paying for the storm pumping, I think really the way we do things in Ontario, the municipalities, you assume the subdivision, the roads, everything else, then it's paid for somehow through your scheme of collecting money for it, be it water and wastewater rates, taxation, and in this case, possibly the stormwater. So last one is for the cost of properties larger than 0.4 hectares. And I did in my report calculate the cost for 4 individual properties. I didn't name what they were, but I gave examples of what they were. And those fees would range from $6 a month for the one residential property, which was higher than that, but would have very little hard surfaced area, up to a monthly fee of $70 for the highest cost that I calculated of those 5 example properties. So I just give people an idea of what those range of costs might be. So next in the report, I actually go over what I'm recommending as the financial model and developing of the bylaw, which I am recommending. So I'm recommending a starting fee of $5 a month for Beachville, Brownsville, Salford, and Sweeburg, and $9 per month for Mount Elgin. During the preparation of the bylaw, it's interesting the way the bylaw would be set up, and I did work on the one for Zora, so I have done one of these. The bylaw is actually quite simple, and it doesn't have a lot in it. The initial rate for the fees would be set in there, but then it would reference your fees and charges bylaw. So every year then in your fees and charges bylaw, and as you do your budget, you would consider what you needed to set the rate for. Whether you leave it the same or whether you would increase it. So the big thing in developing the bylaw is doing the schedules to identify each property and what their charge is. I would say when I did the Zora, severely underestimated the time it would take to do that. Got a better idea with this time, that's for sure. And the Ottawa County GIF was amazing and helpful. That's for sure. Without them, that would have been a dreadful exercise, I'll tell you that. I think here there's something like 1,200 properties or something like that in the initial bylaw. So, and getting the information out of them is very helpful. I did in the report put together a 10-year projection based on those rates and some more costs that we put in there. So if the cost of cleaning out the initial phase, that one pond for grading was 75 grand. You would dip into the negatives in the first year because you'd only have half a year of revenue, but in the second year you would be back into the good figures. And with my projections, you would have a rate of reserve of 450,000 after the 10 years. Now, clearly, that would be confirmed if you did do a more fulsome financial plan. And one thing to know when people are talking about what the split of cost is between Mount Elgin and the others, after 10 years with the amount of growth that would happen in Mount Elgin, pretty close to 50% of the revenue going into that reserve after the 10 years would be coming from Mount Elgin. So they do have higher costs, but they also would be putting more money than everybody else in there, higher rate and more properties, right? So I think that it's a fair way to go about it. So my recommendations is for council to approve staff going ahead and hiring a consultant to do that financial plan. They do get busy and get that grade in phase 1 plan cleaned out before the well before that development is happening beside it. Certainly when that happens there, you're gonna have way more neighbors. I think there's about gonna be about 8 properties with 8 or 9 properties which back onto it once it's done. And they'll be looking at it and wanting you to do good maintenance on it, and it'd be a good job to get that started before, because it costs cheaper when nobody's around it. The development of the stormwater bylaw for the stormwater fee. When I developed the one for Zora, I also wrote a manual along with it, which describes how you maintain that bylaw and work it through the years. So that would be part of the development of that. Also, we're still working on this in Zora, is developing a written operational plan for the stormwater systems to gather all the information you've got, and then you put together a plan as to, when the estimated maintenance for certain things would be and what you need to do on a year by year or every 5 years sort of thing, for all of the, like the ponds and the inspection of the pipes and cleaning of catch basins, all that sort of thing. And you've got a couple of interesting ones with I'm not sure which phase it is, but on the south part of the grade one, you've got the ones which have the oil and grit separators and the underground hoops or whatever to infiltrate the water. So those have particular needs. And the last thing which we did with Zora, and it turned out to be a good negotiation. We did negotiate an agreement with the county as to how maintenance on the storm drains on the county roads happened and who paid for what, and then how future capital was going to work between the two municipalities. That was a recommendation in the last Watson report, which overlooked the 2-tier system and what you should look at in the future. So those are my recommendations, and certainly glad to answer any other questions from the report. I think I've covered most of it. So,
Okay, thanks very much, Rob. Question from council. Councillor Pickard first, and then Councillor White.
At the public meeting, we heard very clearly that Mount Elgin wanted 2 tiers within Mount Elgin. For the people that weren't involved or weren't in the new subdivision area, didn't feel they should have to pay for the new subdivision. So just wondered, you're not recommending that, so tell us why.
yeah, I'm going to tell you why. So actually, the stormwater management ponds in Mount Elgin aren't all for the new development. There's one on the east side of town. It's actually on the golf course, and it's part of, I believe it's the Campbell Drain. So there's one there, and Mount Elgin Road itself with the new pipe on it, which comes down as part of the house drain. That really actually acts as part of the new pond, which is being built now for the next phase of the subdivision. That all works together in ways, as the water gets to that and then goes down into the ditch across which is across the tracks. And when you do eventually the northwest quadrant of Mount Elgin's developed, there'll be ponds there too. So I think eventually you're going to have the whole community, which has ponds somewhat, to be very few properties that aren't somewhat affected by them. So I think that the level of service there is pretty similar. Kind of interesting too, the township actually redid the storm sewers for the house drain on Mount Elgin Road from the tracks up to as far as it came back towards Highway 19 too. They didn't charge that out to the landowners either. So I think that they got a bit of a break on that compared to other municipal drains. So.
Councillor White.
Yeah, clarification. This all goes under the Ontario Drainage Act. Like this stormwater management, does it fall under the Ontario Drainage Act, where the people that benefit are the people that pay?
So
you know where
the answer initially is no, but I'm going to qualify that. Okay. And actually, it's kind of interesting because on October the 18th, I actually did a presentation at the Drainage Engineers Conference on that very question. As to how a stormwater bylaw with the fee can work with the Drainage Act. So what the intention here is that for the people, we'll use Mount Elgin as the example. The people in Mount Elgin, a lot of them, most of them have an assessment under the Drainage Act on the Campbell drain, or the House drain, or the Powell drain, or the Stevens drain. There's one of them, I can't think of the name of it, but whatever. So what we're anticipating to do is when we build this reserve and we do maintenance on any of those drains, it'll be the reserve that pays their assessment. So they're really paying out to the drain, but they're paying it through the reserve of what they paid into from their monthly fee. So we're sort of going to use both for those people, but this bylaw would be under the black,
Not the Drainage Act.
not the Drainage Act.
Okay.
But as I said, we're going to use the two in conjunction with one another. And the presentation that I did down there at Guelph was about how they can put together. Garnered a lot of interest.
Other questions? Go ahead, Rob.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the charges that you have laid out. My question is it only for the people in Mount Elgin, in Southburg, in Sweeper, or is it anyone who has a rural route address of really route something Mount Elgin?
So. I'll use the example of what we did in Zorin, and I'm anticipating we'll do the same thing here. The way I've done the calculations is. I use the official plan outline of those communities as the boundary of the charge. Now, in saying that, we did the Amber Township one, there's certain properties within there that we exempted from the fee. Like properties which were whole farms, we exempted them from the fee, and then they'll pay it, what it's the way it reads in the bylaw and the way it reads in the manual. So those ones are charged under the Drainage Act as they always would have been. So it's not that they don't pay, they just pay in a different way. And these people that are within the area we put in the appendix to the bylaw and charge them, thereby paying into that, and they would pay both the fees which were done outside the Drainage Act and inside the Drainage Act in the future too, for the work that are there. Now, one thing I want to make very clear is this is set up for operations and maintenance. It isn't set up for capital expansions of systems. So say in one of these communities, there's something big that needs to be done to expand something. You know, there would be need to be some way to charge that out at the time. So there's a street that needs to have storm sewers on for whatever reason. Maybe a developer does part of that, and maybe some of it is done in church. And that isn't included in this, but everything that's existing there now, capital replacement of that, and any operations and maintenance is to be covered under this.
Rob, you mentioned that Zora did a special deal with the county. Because Brownsville is actually 90 or 95% of the storm water is actually under a county road. So how did that kind of work out?
We negotiated a deal where it was it laid out what the county would do on the county roads and just pay for it themselves. And then what the townships would do for their system. And then it put together that for any capital works which need to be cost shared, that there would be agreement on that, which would be negotiated 2 years ahead of them doing any work.
Anything else?
And there are in Brownsville, there are drains that are off the county road too.
Oh, yeah, I know there are, yeah.
I'm sure you know better than I do.
Go ahead, Mary.
No, there is, in some cases, so everybody understands, there may be just a few properties in those boundaries that don't drain into any particular municipal drain that will be paying based on the outline of the community. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
What I did when I put together the bylaw for Zora too, there's a few properties there that actually slope away from the roads too. We said there that anybody that had frontage on the roads, that their property used the road for access, which everybody does, they paid at least the minimum. So there are some big properties that it all sloped away and eventually something else will be done for development and then they'll be picked up. Like, say it's a 10-acre parcel and becomes, 30 homes in the future. Well, then they'll pay 30 in the future, but for now, they just paid the minimum fee.
Any other questions? So Rob, at the meeting, the public meeting, and you referenced it in your report, there was a number of comments about the old part of the Mount Elgin subdivision and all that. Should not be paid, it should be all the new 250 houses. I'm just wondering, it seems pretty obvious to me that phase 1, 2, 3 all drain into what you call the Drayton, and therefore they should be paying for it. In fact, people on Peggy Ave should be paying for it because some of that water eventually runs down Peggy Ave and then down Drayton into the. So I understand where some people would say, well, if I'm on phase 4 and I run down the hill, I think it's the M5, was it drained over there?
Yeah.
But that's captured in this as well, right? If we repair the M5 drain, heading south, they're gonna pay a portion of it. I think some of them were saying, well, wait a minute, I don't actually have a stormwater management pond, so I guess there will be eventually on the M5. Will it be down at the bottom of phase 4?
I think M5 actually goes into one of those, the complicated ones there with the storm.
So anyway, I think in looking at it, to me, it sort of seemed like the vast majority of people in Mount Elgin, one way or another, are actually being served by either a drain or a stormwater management pond now, and therefore need to be paying into this, whether, there may be the odd one, but they'd be few and far between that don't actually have some form of drainage. Despite the fact Mount Elgin's on the hill, they seem to be pretty well drained.
Yeah, actually, all of them have a drain, whether it's like Mount Elgin Road East, County Road 18. I know the county put that in because I was there with it happened. But that drains into that pond. That's why I know about that, because it drains into the pond that's on the Campbell Drain, which is part of the golf course there on whole number, whatever. And so no, everybody in Mount Elgin has, is connected to drain, to the north, their drainage goes onto the highway. And we clearly can't, we're not in a position to pass a bylaw here, I don't think, under this, which actually would charge the problem. They're not going to municipal act, they would accept it. But we're also not going to pay them in for anything that they're doing either.
Okay, and, go ahead.
But just for clarification then, Rob, so then if we do decide to adopt a bylaw for fees, then anybody that's listed within the bylaw would not pay any further the repair or maintenance under the Drainage Act, correct?
The intention is we would pay that out of the reserve.
Right.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Just a little more public or clarification on the MTO road. So anybody that's on an MTO road potentially would not benefit from their payment, but they're still gonna make that payment. I know the province is gonna pay for any drainage needs there. But if I live on an MTO road, I don't, but if someone were to, they're gonna pay that $9 or $5 a month and they're never gonna benefit from it.
They are going to benefit because they pay into the downstream drains. They're all picked up by downstream drains. So, to the north there, it goes to Reynolds Creek, to the south, it goes to the Campbell Drain. So everybody is picked up by a drain there somewhere. So everybody would have some, and, it gets to the point of how fine do you get with the cost of saying, I need to pay, $10 and I need to pay $20. We're sort of trying to simplify this. And quite frankly, I said in my report, the secret to success here is having a good operational plan, so you're doing the maintenance at the right time to keep the cost right. And then spreading the costs is sort of as fairly, but as widely as you can. Sharing the one reserve. I can think back, and this isn't quite the same thing, but I can think back to the start of us doing the county operations for water and waste, for water particularly. And there was a lot of small systems here in Southwest Oxford at that time. And, some might can remember the charge in Swedenborg at the time we took it over was $130 a year. Now, people weren't very happy when we took it to initially to $450 and then to $600. But eventually it's come back a little, and now it's metered, so you pay as per this. So And they're sharing the cost of all of those systems widely amongst the now 30,000 customers or whatever it is in Oxford County. And I think sort of gives a good deal pretty much for everybody, and the costs on those small systems, there was mostly a lot of them are here. Quite frankly, much higher than what we were charging. Sure.
Yeah, just wondering what determines the timing of a pond clean out? And where I'm going with that is, so you said we're gonna run into a deficit position if we clean out the phase 1, 2, and 3 pond next year. Could we delay that by a year in order to build up reserve prior to undertaking the work?
Well, your staff are getting a survey done on it to determine how bad it is, so that'll answer that question.
Yeah, I reached out to Metro or Geo Morpix. They're gonna do a sediment survey on the and take some samples to see what's in there and see when we.
That'll be answered then.
So, any other questions? And then I just got, Rob, how comfortable are you with the, I think it's 9 and 5 dollar numbers that you're suggesting? And the last thing, it's better to start at a certain level than to have to start here and then immediately raise it. That's why I'd rather not raise it the next year or two. I'd like it to be pretty accurate the first time.
Well, that's why I did in this report, which I just gave you, I did sort of the financial projection for this thing. You know, in the next year or two, you gotta clean that line. You need to get it cleaned out and going in the right direction before those houses all come back onto it, right? Like that would be bad business not to do that. And, you know, I was out there, I've seen it a couple of times, and it's pretty evident to me that the sediment forebay looks to be as though it's pretty much full. So it needs to be. And if you let it get worse than that, the costs are gonna balloon. And you know, what this geomorphics is gonna tell you is whether or not there's any contaminants in there which causes it to need to be trucked somewhere else. If it doesn't need to be trucked the long ways, the cost shouldn't be that bad. How comfortable I am with the 9.5? I'm really comfortable with it because what you need to do with this plan is you need to, over the next few years, you need to develop it, right? And then develop what the real costs are. I can't sit here and tell you what they were. You know, I'm going from projections of what I've seen and 4 years of working on it. So
I was hoping these weren't being too concerned. I don't want you to be too, over the top either, but I didn't want to be, trying to cut it to the bone. Rather than let's set it at a reasonable rate to start with, and then we don't have to have a big increase in the year's time.
The most important thing to me is you get it started and you get working on it and then see where you need to go. You know, say 10 years from now it needs to be double that, which I doubt. Like the infrastructure you've got in Mount Elgin, a lot of it is new, right? The subdivision is relevant, it's all less than 20 years old. Or 20 years old, plus or minus. Mount Elgin Road is new, County Road 18 is new, you don't have to worry about the stuff on the problem. So the infrastructure there is actually relatively new. Even in the other communities, the storm sewers are there, a lot of them are dreadfully old, so it's not as though you've got a whole bunch of things that you need to replace instantaneously. When I did the ones for Embro and Tempster, it's interesting because over those years of doing the sewers, so starting in Tempster around 2000, that started in Embro and Tempster were both done by 2011. So all that infrastructure there is relatively new. And so there isn't so you got time through asset management and your other, you know, as you do inspections on it, to just then start identifying problems and planning out over longer periods of time. So I'm really not afraid of starting at the level that I've got it there, because you don't have immediate needs except to scrape and clean it, which I'm saying really needs to be done ASAP. So I'm not that worried about it. You're not spending a lot right now on this, so it's not as though you've got a huge budget. In Brand, what we're doing there, we've been out to the public. We had 2 public meetings last year. Quite frankly, they're way worse than first. And our council got pretty skittish. We did another report back to them. We did not propose to go ahead with the bylaw. We proposed to do the financial plan, which we've done now. And we're going to do more, we're going to do actually more consultation to try and explain to people better why we need to do this. And in all these cases, it isn't as though this money isn't going to have to be spent somehow. Like all the money that we're talking about spending here isn't new money that we're venting out of nowhere. It's stuff that you're gonna have to do. You know, under your new, PLI, EPA for all the storm drains. You know, this year, next year, you have to report the problems of what you're doing. You know, and what you're doing here is part of that, the start of really of that.
Good. Any other questions? And then Daniel, did you have any questions as a drainage guy? You're not uncomfortable with this direction?
No, I agree with it.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, well, you see the recommendations, is staff bringing recommendations forward? Okay,
I just rewrote it for council's consideration that we need.
you go ahead.
So what's being proposed as a recommendation is resolved that council of the township of Stockton received the report prepared by Rob Walton, UW2 engineering dated November 13th, 2024 as information. And further that council provide direction to staff to develop a financial plan for urban storm water maintenance, the consultant at an estimated cost of $10,000. Further that council authorized that the grading phase 1 pond be budgeted to be cleaned out in 2025. And that cost estimates for the work be developed by township staff for the 2025 budget. And further that council approved the development of a stormwater fee bylaw and manual at an estimated cost of $18,000 with the concept of 2-tiered rates as follows. Mount Elgin initially $9 per month. Beachville, Brownsville, Salford, Sweetburg initially $5 per month. The rates for all properties larger than 0.4 hectares to be calculated based on an actual runoff compared to the minimum fee set above. The fee set in the bylaw is to be confirmed by the financial plan. The bylaw to be considered by council for enactment in March or April of 2025 and billing to start in July 2025, start July 1st, 2025. And further that township staff and RW2 engineering develop a written operational program for urban storm water operations in 2025, 2026 at an estimated cost of $15,000. And further that an agreement be negotiated with Oxford for storm water maintenance costs on county roads at an estimated cost of $3,000.
Okay, so that's a recommendation from staff. Do you have a mover or a seconder for that? Okay. We don't. Councilor Gillis, are you moving?
Yeah.
Do you have a seconder? Seconded by Wade. So discussion.
How are we paying for these costs? My first question, Mr. Mayor.
So that, how are we paying for this? This is coming from the rates?
The cost of the clean out of the pond,
The manual and the, you got a manual and an operational program.
it's coming from reserves.
Which reserves?
Modernization reserve.
My second question, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
With this manual and operational program, what exactly do they look like? I guess that's a question for Rob, but what are we getting for 18,000 and 15,000 respectively?
Rob, do you want to?
Sure. So I answer the manual first. So when develop the bylaw is 2 or 3 pages long. And then there's the appendices to it and then the schedules. So the big part of doing this is getting the schedules done with all the properties done, analyzed and as to whether or not they're the minimum fee. Figuring out all the properties, figuring out who's the minimum fee, and then calculating the rates for the ones that aren't the minimum. So that's the first part of doing the bylaw. Then what I did is wrote a manual, which is very simple. It's like 2 pages long, which tells the staff how to keep the schedules and the bylaw up to date.
So it's simple, but it costs 18,000.
Yeah.
And what's the operational program?
The operational program is getting all of the information together on the systems that you own. Now, you've already started that. The CLI ECA is part of that, but getting together all of the stuff from the developments that have been done. So you've got a manual that has everything together for that, and then talks through what you need to do at different times to operate that.
Other questions? So the choice is we proceed with stormwater fee, or we use the drainage act and assess amounts to each individual property, or you pay for it through general taxation. Those are kind of the three options. Go ahead, Councilor.
So historically, we paid these costs through general taxation.
Mary Ellen, I thought it was drainage act.
It's the drainage act up to this point. We haven't had a stormwater management fund coming out before. And we are going to have more. So this was the idea behind commencing this process ahead of the creation of the next one. And we are a little bit behind the 8 ball on the existing one, is to get this in place so that it's taken care of moving forward.
Other questions? Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not a question per se, but more of a comment. I'm kind of agreeing with Councilor Pickard in that there's a number of big numbers that were thrown around there that are all going to be pulled out of reserve for preliminary work on this. I wonder if we might be able to defer this decision for a couple of weeks and just have a staff report come forward outlining these expenses once again and what's going to be happening for those expenses.
Okay. Are you making a motion to defer?
If that's in proper order, yes, I will.
The motion's on the floor, but I think we can defer a motion on the floor, so. You have a second? Seconded by Pickard. Defer pending a staff report?
Correct.
Okay.
To be brought forward in 2 weeks' time.
Is 2 weeks reasonable? Okay. All right.
I don't want to drag this out. I just want a little bit of time to think about it.
Okay. Wait. Any discussion on the deferral motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much, Rob, and we'll be in touch. So,
Thank you.
I think we're now, Rick Bell's here from the Grove Cemetery. Rick, do you want to come on up to the table and we'll see the grant process get underway, so.
Good. Thanks.
Yeah, hey, Robert. Well, go ahead and give us the good news at Grove Cemetery.
Well, we've had a fairly busy year this year, for us anyway. According to this, the report that I've handed in, we've sold 2 full plots. And we had 4 burials. That was up until the end of August. They were all cremation burials. Since then, we've had another 4 cremation burials. This year it just seemed everything was cremation, no full plots. We're holding steady. There's an $8,000 GIC that was cashed in before the first of the year, and we repurchased it. But now we've got, as of October, there was another $5,000 GIC that was cashed in. And we haven't decided what we're doing with that yet. We're getting close to the end of the year. There was no amount put in for insurance because it hadn't come, the bill hadn't come through. It was just under the $1,400 for it. Other than that, We appreciate your support every year. We're maintaining what we can do.
Thanks, sir. Any questions from council? Councilor Yellen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Rick, these investments, two questions around them. One, where did the funds come from? Just roughly, and then two, do you only use the interest income from that in operations, or where are they?
Yeah, now, all of this income, the investments we got, which is about 37,000, that has been accumulated over the years. Like, as I said, this cemetery has been going for a lot of time. It just started about 1850s. And but it's gradually been accumulated over the years with the surplus. We've accumulated from selling the plots and that. We haven't really, last few years, we've just been maintaining it. We use it, the interest off of it, that's where that money was coming from. It's been built up over the years.
Okay.
Part of that, we bought quarter acre of land about 7 years ago to expand our cemetery. So we have lots of property now to expand in that, because it goes all the way to the edge of the woods there now. So it is actually being worked now by the farmer that we bought it from. So anyway.
Go ahead, Councilor.
Follow-up question, thank you. You mentioned that you had 8 burials this year and they've all been cremation burials. It's been a while since I've been through the Grove Cemetery, but how does a cremation burial differ from a full burial, both in terms of cost and in terms of space required? And how is it designated within the cemetery?
The cremation burial and the full burial, we hire a backhoe to dig the hole, which is whatever, 6 or 4 by 6 or whatever. And it is $1,000. Cremation burial, we dig it ourselves, and it's generally about a 10-inch or 12-inch square hole, 30 inches deep. Which is we dig ourselves and look after it before and after the service. It's 350 per head.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Rick? Well, thanks very much. It might appear that $37,000 is a lot of money in reserves. If your lawn cutting is $3,900 a year.
But it's more close to 5, because there was a couple of cuttings after this.
So you've only got 5 or 6 years of lawn cutting, with prices increasing and that. So I think that sometimes people haven't been exposed to the realities of cemetery. It sounds like they have a lot of money until it gets down today that there's no more burials. Sudden, so
yeah.
So thanks very much for what you do. We'll be working on the budget. What we'll do a little bit tonight, but we'll certainly have it done by the end of the year, and we'll let you know.
We're very appreciative of the support you give us over the years.
Thank you. Okay, I've got Darlene Graham next. Bring your sidekick with you. Come on up and tell us a story about how things are at the Legion.
Okay, first of all, good evening, Mayor Dave and council, and there's a little joke behind that, but that's okay. Thank you for allowing us to be here tonight to represent the Legion, and I, Darlene Graham, and Darlene Julian, my sidekick. Of course, the first question on the grant is about the organization. Well, we all know the Legion is about remembering our veterans and also supporting veterans today. and people that are still actively serving our country, as well as people that are needing our assistance as they come back. So we do this mainly through our Poppy campaign. Poppy campaign money is used strictly for that purpose. Go to convention once a year or twice a year, and Poppy money is allocated to different things, like we have Leave the Streets Behind for homeless veterans, service dogs for veterans in that need, Hospital Foundation, which is Parkwood Hospital in London and Sunnybrook Hospital in Toronto. And there's a bursary program through the Legion for students pursuing post-secondary school. That being said, we also at this time, as a Legion, like to demonstrate respect for our country and respect in our community and community involvement. We've been doing this a lot in the last few years with the Beachville Museum. I was actually there today to make a donation to the museum for their lights, which is taking place in a couple of weeks. And while I was there, I spoke to Sydney, and she mentioned partnership and community partnership. And that was a really good feeling, knowing that we're thought of that way in our community. We also do things with the Beachville Parks and Rec. We've got people tomorrow night coming down to help us decorate our hall. And I think there's some students coming, so they're getting community hours and that. So this is what the Legion is today in Beachville. Tonight, we're here to ask for grant money for particular projects that we're looking at. And Jordan Julian has kind of spearheaded this project and did some research on it. She's got a little bit of information and can leave some information on the project for you to have a look at as well. So Jordan.
It's called Honor Our Veterans Banner Program. The purpose of the Honor Our Veterans Banner Program is to recognize and honor our veterans, deceased veterans, and active service members or veterans who have served or are currently serving in the Canadian Allied or Commonwealth Forces. The program is open to all veterans' families who wish to honor their family members. It's to promote remembrance in our community. The banner will include a photo, a name, military affiliation. Sponsor will be proudly displayed in the village of Beachville, commencing on Legion Week. This is what we're hoping for, which is in mid-September up until November the 12th. The sponsor of the banner, which is normally a family members, we haven't quite got the cost down yet, how much they can pay. That includes the shipping and taxes. We'll have the banner designed and printed. Beachville Legion will look after holding them until the next year. I have called place in Sarnia, who does the Sarnia Legion's banners. And for a banner, for them to do it, it's on both sides, it's $175. Might be, that's not including taxes, of course. And there might be some additional charges on it with the grommets that we have to put on it, depending on the mounting arms that we have to use, or that we need to use, which we haven't got into that yet because we haven't got anything back from Ontario Hydro, whether we can use their poles or if they would put them up for us. I'm not sure if you've got, the township's got anyways to get them up high enough on the hydro poles.
So we're not gonna put them on the hydro poles, we don't have equipment, and second of all, I think they're earth poles, aren't they? Yeah.
They're what? Earth, oh yeah, I said the wrong.
So I did talk to Earth about this a year ago.
Yeah, it could be a year ago because it has been on the books for.
And they were, I think, fairly willing, to, so.
Oh, that's great. I haven't got any word back from.
Okay, I'll check into that the next day to both of you.
Okay, so each banner will include the words "Lest we forget" for those killed in action, or "Thank you for our freedom," along with the Legion logo and a combined Canadian and British flag. We would use the World War I, World War II, Cold War, Korean War, Afghanistan, peacekeeping, regular forces, reserve forces. The years of service are not being included. And the branch of service is the Army, Air Force, Navy, and Air Force. We're not putting the ranks on the banners because we want all veterans to be recognized as equals. So we're not going to have the general or lieutenant, anything on. We have an application for them to fill out. The name of the full banner, which will appear on the banner, the maximum of 30 characters. And they can choose whether lest we forget or thank you for our freedom. Yeah, and I like to be thankful too. I do have a few of these handouts that you can take a look at, and you can look at it later too.
Also, our thought as far as putting something like this on the pole, this would be used for a time of remembrance, as Darlene stated. But it could be also something that could be used at different times of the year if it's already there, and there's a potential of being able to put up Canadian flags at July 1st for Canada Day, or some kind of festive decorations at Christmas or something like that, just to promote a little more of, you know, within the community and that, and the togetherness in the community.
And the township can be using it too, like, you know, for these things, for putting up different banners.
Adam, we don't have any poles at all, along there. So my only concern is that from an electrical safety perspective, we probably don't want to be touching the poles. We probably want her to be doing it on our behalf. And how often they'd be willing to do that as a gift, so, and
Yeah.
or what the charge would be, so.
Well, I don't know if it's something that could be explored further in other communities too, because it is becoming more of a norm in other communities, smaller communities, that you go through at Canada Day and see the Canadian flags and that kind of thing too, so.
Like we know Woodstock has got them up, and I was talking to the city council there, and they actually paid for everything. They had 60 applicants last year, 2023, I'm not sure what they have for 2024, for 2023, and they didn't charge anybody anything to put them up or to get them. And when I was talking to her, she says that's not the best idea that they had. You should ask them for a contribution towards it, because you'll be getting everybody coming out of the woodwork. And it's something free.
Okay. All right, so that's kind of the main focus of the grant this year.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Questions from council? Comments? Councilor Yetman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So with this banner program, what catchment area, like how would you determine who would be displayed on the banners in Beachville, for instance? Like what kind of an area would you draw from?
We would draw from the Beachville area to start with, Beachville, Belfast, Oxford area to start with. I know that the museum has a lot of pictures of people from Beachville area that were in the services. You can see it on, you remember they had everything on Facebook of the people, but we'd have to get permission from a family member and sponsor to put them up. We just can't go to the museum and get them and put them up.
Go ahead.
Just a follow-up comment. I've seen a number of these, a number of towns that have these in place. Tillsonburg has one on Quarter Town Line. I've been through Hagersville. Are there some communities that leave them up permanently?
Yes, there is.
Okay, I thought so. Because
Yeah.
Hagersville, I was through there earlier this spring and the streets are lined with them there.
That's another thing we could do too. We could leave them up. They wear quicker that way though. If you're leaving them up all through.
Yeah, without giving any kind of an assurance as to funding for this year, obviously, we're still in discussions, but I love this program. I really do. You know, when I see those banners in Tillsonburg and elsewhere, it's inspiring. I know, for instance, one family in Hagersville, there's 5 members of the same family with the same last name as you're driving down the street. And it's humbling to see the sacrifice that so many have made in defense of our freedoms here. And so, you know, that we're in budget deliberations right now, but I'm hopeful that you're able to make this work in Beachville.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councilor Gillis.
Yeah, just a comment through you, Mr. Mayor. Just thank you, ladies, for all you do in the greater Beachville area. And it's always great working with the Legion, whether it be with the museum, with Parks and Rec, or even firefighters associations. I think we've come a long way in the last several years of working together when we have events on. sharing team members to accomplish some common goals, and I think it's been really great the last few years, especially working together as a group on our bigger functions together. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you. So I'll be in touch with you, after I talk to her, and I'll basically just ask them to talk to you directly. But there's no point in me being in the way, so.
Sure, I'm leaving in a couple weeks for Texas, so. I'll be here.
Great. So I'll just sort of aim towards you then, Darlene, and then you can have that one-on-one conversation and Darlene.
Yeah. Every day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
These for you?
Please. Just give it a go, no fuss. Oh, Darlene. Good. Okay. And we'll let you know in the next few weeks, so.
Thank you. Good evening.
Here's the District Nature Club, Jim here. Jim, I think you were here last week or 2 weeks ago, and I came the wrong night. I'm sure you enjoyed your evening here, so. So if you want to, kind of give us the, situation with the, Nature Club and.
So you have our
Yes.
proposals and just go through it. We've asked for 4,500. That's kind of a soft number because some of these things we don't know the actual value of. The big item is the $2,000 for the third, and for us, it'll be the final year on the Phragmites project. We have, or we will be telling Ontario Nature that we've committed, we've fulfilled our commitment. Because we can't just keep coming back for money for it. I mean, they can pay for it. They haven't actually done this year yet. They do it at the end of November, so they'll be probably doing it in a couple of weeks. The second largest item was the unexpected rebuilding of the outhouse. Apparently the floor collapsed.
We held up, was gonna go to idea, if somebody fell through, we'd probably hear about it.
So we made that the priority and kind of just got it done. So, but then that bumped a couple of things that we actually applied for last year, bumped them down the road. We have the money to do it, but we had to concentrate on getting the outhouse done. The notice board, well, that's both posts rotted out, so we have to get a couple of new cedar posts and rebuild that. Now Sheila Fleming talked to, I think it was Adam in Public Works. There we go. About I guess once a year, Ontario Nature wants to, they come out and we pull out buckthorn. And Sheila spoke to Adam about maybe getting it picked up because there's a pile out at the parking area. And you were just concerned with what budget that came out. So we put a line item in here. We had no idea what we should have put it in, so we put $500 in. If that's less, then so be it. It's not money that we would need. We would just need you to allocate the money to work, do that pickup once a year. And then something Sheila noticed was the pavilion that's over the picnic tables. There seems to be beetle infestation in that, so that needs to be sprayed. And that's an estimate we have. We don't know what that's actually going to cost. Since we put in our financial statement, we've taken in another 2,100, I think, dollars in dues and donations. So we have enough money to cover our operating expenses. And then the benches, which were came under the 2024 grant and replacing the boardwalk, which is also under the 24 grant. We need to re-roof the lean-to shelter at the end. We'll cover that. And redeck the bridge. Some of those boards are getting springy, and I'd rather redeck it before somebody puts their foot through it. So things are covered. I got a request for a quote out to Ben Daniels, his name is Ben at Maple Haven Sawmill, rough cut timber to put on, to do those redecking and boardwalk. I mean, I know what it's gonna cost if I buy fir or spruce from Depot, but I really don't want to use fir or spruce because they're just gonna walk away. So we'll see, he was talking about nice and hardwood board. That's our financials. And I'm gonna pass these around. You mentioned yourself, Mr. Mayor, in a previous meeting about parking at the track.
Yes.
Well, so we were there, or we held our annual general meeting at the track, the roofed area, we were there. And the local farmer, asked if he could join, and he did, and he was actually, it was a useful addition to the meeting, even reminiscing about, he knew the history of the place. But he heard a combine coming. And he'd been talking about how the road, people are parked on both sides. He said he gets off and he headed out, it's not very far from the roof to the road. And he took the photograph that's going around. And combines are quite large these days, and if we have the cars over here, and maybe some people haven't parked very tightly, that's still gonna work. But if they park on the other side as well, then, I mean, he said 6 inches, picture maybe a foot, but you don't want the combine to have to creep through there at 1 mile an hour to do that. So we were hoping that perhaps we could get some signage, no parking on that side. Because that outside, yeah, we had a couple congestions. If SWAC could put no parking signs just in front of the track and on the south side, so that people wouldn't park on that south side. And on our side, I measured it out, it's about 100-foot frontage. You can fit easily 10 vehicles in there. There is bigger pickup trucks kind of get their tail end gets kind of close to the road though. So there's a little bank here. If we could scoop out some of that bank, use the spoil to fill in at either end, we can actually get 12 vehicles. But if a sign can be put there, either we'll have it done or SWAC's could, please park perpendicular to the road. Because if everybody parks perpendicular, you can fit 10, 12 vehicles. If they start parking diagonal or parallel, you're not getting that many. But certainly the signage on the other side, because that was where the real problem is. If the combine could have gone over an extra, I still would see yard and a half or something, then that would have made a big difference. But with cars there, you had to creep through, and he actually mentioned that a week or two before, one of the combines had actually wound up in the ditch, they had to haul them out. And that's, we certainly don't want that, and we're trying to see what can be done about that. In some ways, it's a reflection of success. If there were only 2 cars there ever, it wouldn't make any difference. But there's plenty of cars at times. It's a popular place to park.
That was unusual because we had our annual general meeting at the track. We had a few cars there just amongst ourselves, but there were other people walking the track at the same time.
And obviously it varies from time of year. You're not going to have a combine going by in February, which might have a snowplow, and so all of these things. So that would be the signage, because it helps. It's official. That helps, and so we were wanting to raise that issue as well as the budgetary issue.
So if we could even get a farmer that lives on Macbeth with a front end loader, if he can scoop it out, it's kind of an in-kind thing. We could talk to, it was John DeBruin, our next door neighbor. If he can come over with his tractor and scoop it out, I mean, we can take care of that ourselves. Otherwise, that's beyond kind of our means, is to get equipment out there.
We have to be a little careful on public roads, what you can and can't do.
Yeah.
And we don't want to upset Adam in any way, shape or form. The road signage requires a bylaw to say no parking.
Okay.
So staff can look into that, and they'll report back to council. But I actually agree with that. I would like to see more parking on the north side and no parking on the south side.
And just put some kind of, logic to it, because the people park illegally, they're using up spaces that they don't need to.
Okay. All right, so we'll leave that with the staff to bring back. Okay, anything further?
No, that was pretty much our presentation.
Okay, well, thanks very much. As I told the other groups, we're working on the budget. We hope that'll be done before the end of the year, and we'll certainly let you know what happens.
And I'd like to add, as I've heard other people, we really do appreciate the regular support. Some years, even this year, we were looking like we would, like things were gonna be really tight. But then there was a little money, sometimes the money came more than unexpectedly, but without your assistance, we would regularly be, well, as I would put it, because I wandered around and feed birds, I wouldn't be feeding the birds. We wouldn't have the money for that, and they'd be unhappy with me. This year, we had a number of things just plain wear out.
I'm always amazed when you go up and down the road, there's almost always a car or two there, right? So usually it's middle of the day or something, but and if you walk the trail, you almost always meet somebody else.
In the winter, when I'm doing the bird, I'm inevitably running into bunches of people coming along and children. It's just, it is great people, seeing people. What it's for. That's what it's for.
Okay, thanks very much, gentlemen. Oh, sorry, any other questions from council? No? Okay, thanks very much, and we'll be in touch, so.
Thank you.
Steve, I think you're next, if you want to come up to the table.
Do that. Go ahead.
For Tillsonburg Minor Hockey.
Yep. Because I had a good time.
Timing is impeccable, so.
Go. Okay, so I'll start. Good evening, your worship and members of council. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Stephen Gradish, and I'm the current past president of Tillsonburg Minor Hockey, or as we're more commonly referred to, TMHI. I'm here representing the board of directors, which governs the day-to-day operations of Tillsonburg Minor Hockey. The board is solely made up of volunteers. The purpose of my presentation tonight is to gain approval for a grant application, which I see you have up on the screen there, and that we are applied for through the Southwest Oxford budget process. A little bit about us. Tillsonburg Minor Hockey operates a minor hockey program for over 300 youth ages 4 to 17 in the Tillsonburg and surrounding area. The TMHI mission statement is to provide an opportunity for area youth to develop life and athletic skills in a positive, progressive learning environment, which is free of harassment for all stakeholders. We are an incorporated not-for-profit organization, as I mentioned earlier, governed by a board of directors, all of which are volunteers. In addition, we have many other volunteers who do not sit on our board, but we're heavily reliant on, such as coaches, trainers, and managers. TMHI was very happy to receive a generous contribution from Southwest Oxford last year. The received grant from Southwest Oxford was used to help offset the overall cost of our TMHI Skills Development Program. The program has a larger overall cost, however, the grant helps us to keep costs low for the program and assist us to manage those costs for young families. TMHI Skills Development Program provides additional practices, power skating clinics, and specialized instructors. The grant ultimately assists in controlling any potential annual increases. And I did forward a copy of our budget just this afternoon. I forgot that I'd done that. I don't know if anybody had seen it. No, it's fine. It's the same as it's been every year that I'm here in the last 6. So we have in our revenues, we have grant money for $2,000 and an offsetting expense. This year, there's a $6,000 expense for the overall player development program. We of course use the $2,000 to help offset that. For anyone questioning, possibly why TMHI and Southwest Oxford have this relationship, I think maybe most people know, but it actually falls to the residential qualifications set forth by the Ontario Minor Hockey Association. For many rural townships in Ontario who do not own or operate an arena, the OMHA has regulations in place to allow all children to travel to the next closest minor hockey association. So every year that I've been coming, and I said this is now I think my 6th year since coming to do this, we average 10% of our total registration from Southwest. So, and I mean, like our total operating budget
This year will be just shy of $260,000. So very much appreciate the contribution from Southwest Oxford. Lastly, I encourage you to find us on the internet at www.tmhi.org to see all the hockey programming we have to offer. I'd like to thank you for your time this evening, and that concludes my presentation, Your Worship. I'm available for any questions.
Good, thanks very much, Steve. Any questions from council? I think this is one of the groups that we've sponsored virtually every year that I can remember. And as you say, we don't have an arena, and we're kind of glad to be able to support local communities. Also, children from Southwest Oxford have the opportunity to play hockey. No questions from council? So as I said, the other groups, we hope before, well, certainly before the end of the year, we'll have passed the budget and we'll let everybody know what the outcome is. So,
Sounds like everyone's me.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for your time tonight.
What you do.
What's that?
Thanks for your hard work.
Yeah. I would like to add, I know you guys haven't seen the budget last year. I think it was, Councilor Gitman had asked about we had some bank charges. We didn't earn a lot of interest. So after that, this meeting that I had, I actually went back and we have enrolled some of our savings into a GIC. And we're earning a little bit more money now. So thank you very much for that contribution last year. It put me on notice to go down and make sure that they're looking after our.
Well, thanks for all you do, and we'll let you know as soon as we can.
Thank you very much. Enjoy your evening.
Lori, hold up to the chair, your timing is really on. Like we're a little bit early, but you don't mind, go ahead and start.
Don't have time.
We have the application in front of us, so.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the Souls meeting in this year. We are a not-for-profit. We're in our 71st year running. Current programs, flagship program is CanSkate, which is new skaters who are children. But we run learn to skate programs for teens and adults. We run figure skating programs up to age 18. And we run power skating skills as well for hockey and ring out players. Currently, our fall registration, we have 15% registered from Southwest Oxford. And our winter registration is just up and running right now. We are requesting $2,000 in funding just to help with our ongoing expenses and our ice fees to try to keep these program costs reasonable. It's been a tough couple of years. Figure skating is an expensive sport for people, and in this economy, it's not something that, you know, as many people are signing up for, but we've had 71 years under our belts and there are ups and downs with them all the time. So we're confident that we will see it through, but a little assistance is always helpful.
Okay, thanks very much. Any questions? Councilor Pickard, you're first.
I don't like to see it projecting a loss on your.
Yeah, so absolutely. Our budget we put together in the summer, obviously in our off season, we're looking at last year's registration and last year's expenses. But what we don't include in there is our fundraising and our community sponsorships. So we're confident we would make at least half of that up with community sponsorships. We're always reticent to give up ice time because there's a good chance we won't get it back the following year. There's level demand for ice in Ingersoll. Last year, we had a couple programs where we didn't have the registration to cover the cost of the ice, but we maintained the ice anyway, and we took a loss on it just for fear of getting it back. This year, with that kind of projection, we did not do the same, right? So we did give up ice, so our ice bills will balance out a little bit better this time as well.
Okay, Councilor, you were next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So what's the cost of a registration to have a child in your club?
Yeah, depending on the program. So our half-season programs are about $220. Full season programs about double that for a learn to skate kind of program. versus an advanced figure skating program, they're gonna pay $800 for a season.
Counselor Webb.
How many times a week are they on the ice, like to learn to skate? Or twice a week or?
We have 3 days of ice. And it's divided out, so they learn to skate, they can sign up for either 1 or 2 days.
So,
We do give a discount if they do sign up for both days, they get a 35% discount.
so that would be like 1 or 2 hours or 50 minutes or whatever it is.
Yeah, 45-minute sessions for the smallest ones.
Okay. Right, any other questions? So you weren't here before, when I said the same thing to all the other groups. We're currently working our way through the budget. We'll do a little more of it tonight. And then, we'll, hopefully have, decided what we're doing before the end of the year, and we'll reach out to all the, committees and let them know.
Of course, all right, I appreciate your time, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for taking time. Okay, Councilor Yip, you're next on about Elgin, Parks and Rec.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So our request for funding this year is in the range of $6,000. You can go through the numbers if you haven't already. Not a whole lot new here. Last year we had, or this past summer, we had a very successful arrangement with Pilsberg Minor Ball Incorporated, and they used the diamond 4 nights a week plus Saturday mornings for 10 weeks throughout the summer, and that worked out very well. We're hopeful that they're going to do that again, so we've projected another $1,100 worth of rental income for the year 2025. Expenses wise, little hesitant to drop the hydro rates down too far. Depending on how much usage we might get on the ball diamond in the evenings, we left it at 500 instead of 600. Rentals, a lot of our expense the past year was for pickleball, renting the large room of the community center for pickleball, and we're not going forward with that program this year. So we don't have much in the way of rental expenses. So we've dropped that down quite a ways. Repair and maintenance, we got a little bit of a surprise in terms of the mulch that it took to update the area around the playground equipment. And so we've left 2,500 in there for mulching activities around the playground and swing sets. The $3,000 item there, repainting playground equipment. So the equipment sits pretty close to plank line, and a lot of the structure is in good shape, but there's one particular paint color that for whatever reason has deteriorated much more quickly than the rest of it. So a lot of the uprights have gotten rusty and are in need of either resurfacing or whatever. So we don't have any quotes on that. We were hoping to get a quote from a local company to sandblast and paint those parts. But if that were to go forward, we would have to take the entire structure apart, send those parts away to be treated, and then put it back together. And that would be an extensive project to undertake. But we put $3,000 in for that just to refurbish what we've got. Movie licenses, we had in our 2024 budget for 2 community movie nights, and that costs about $300 per license. And we used one of those in the past year. We left it in there in case we might want to do that again in the upcoming year. Moving on to the 5-year capital plan. There is a new provincial government program that was announced at AMO this year for funding for recreational infrastructure. And so we've applied for that to replace the playground equipment. That's why there's a really big number in there for 2025. If we're successful, then obviously the 2027 and 2028 plans would change considerably. I will say the Parks and Rec Committee right now consists of 1 other member plus myself. We don't project any fundraising activities in the upcoming year unless we get new members on board. And most of our meetings right now are conducted through text messages in order to get things done. Meeting with 2 people doesn't really seem like an effective use of our time. So we're a little strained on the labor side. But this is what we put together for the upcoming year.
Okay, thanks very much. Any questions? Any volunteers for the Park and Rec and not our? I don't.
Really good at all.
What do you want to
You want me to move it away?
Anyway, any questions on this? You said you're gonna take apart the playground equipment to paint it, there's no way of sandblasting it where it is and painting it there, or is it just?
We haven't looked into it too far. Maybe that's a possibility, but I would assume that'd be a lot more expensive again, if you have to figure it out. But it's worth looking at for sure, because there's a lot of little bolts and screws that hold all the little parts together, and it's the main uprights that need the treatment. The rest of it's all in pretty good shape, so.
Okay.
And then again, if we're successful on that application through the provincial government, then that $3,000 could go away because we wouldn't bother refurbishing anymore.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, thanks very much, and that moves it on to Craig. Beachville Parks and Rec then.
Yeah, well, there you go. Beachville Parks and Rec, I notice we're asking for a little less this year, without the grass cutting being a major cost for us in the 4 or 5 parcels of grass that need to be cut, so that cuts the budget significantly. Obviously, a couple of the biggest things that we do, the Easter egg hunt at the museum, the partnership with the museum and the Legion, of course, has been pretty close to self-sufficient the last couple of years because of the big draws and donations we've had. And at the same token, what we've been doing for prizes and whatnot at the Legion for the Halloween dance has almost been self-sufficient too. So that's been a really good thing to help us out. Left some of the costs pretty much, we lowered hydro a little bit. We've noticed it's kind of been using less than what we budgeted in the last couple of years. Maintenance, we'll be curious where we end up this year. We kind of left it the same, but the last couple of years, we've been sneaking upwards. I don't know if it's necessarily we're using more mulch or we're having more problems. This past year, you might have heard me speak in the summertime, we did have some graffiti at our main building. That was myself and my family got it kind of repainted and covered over. I think it's going to need at least another coat or looked at again in the upcoming years. So that'll be a cost to our building there. And going from there, I do have good news for our capital plan. In 2025, we talked about putting up a smaller pavilion, 12 by 16 structure with a 20 by 16 pad up near Lowville Pond, put a couple picnic tables underneath there. We have had 2 quotes come in, one at just under 17,000 and the other one around 19. So I think it's pretty safe to say that it would probably be 20 instead of 25. So I think that's a positive thing. As far as our outlook moving forward, either updating some stuff if we get that pavilion or changing some stuff at the park. Other than that, minor stuff is the forecast for the future. So any questions?
Good, thanks. Any questions? No. We've got a few minutes before 8:30, so let's move right on to staff reports then. And we're doing the first one, 66. You made the first report, 66, it says CL 66, so I'm assuming it's yours.
Sure. So the purpose of this report is just to bring forward a recommendation from the Environment Energy Innovation Committee. The committee met a couple of weeks ago now, and they received a request from Sioux Parks and Recreation to receive some funding for the purchase of a combination outdoor garbage and recycling bins for Tommy Williams Park. The Environment Energy Innovation Committee hasn't spent all of their $1,000 grants for the year, so the committee is looking for support to they've authorized the spending of $1,000 towards the purchase of the outdoor collection bins, and they're asking that the balance of that be funded from the township's waste management reserve. So I understand that in order to spend the funds from reserves, we do need to bring that forward to the council for a resolution.
Okay, and Councilor Pickard, do you want to speak to it?
Yeah, it's actually for the ballpark.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Sorry about that.
This is the Lions Park, not the Lions Park. Okay. Any questions on that, Councilor? Yes, ma'am.
So both parks are looked after by the same people?
No.
Different,
Oh, no. Parks, Streeter Parks and Rec,
okay, so it's all the same group looking after them all,
really,
okay.
we
And-
don't, different people look after the garbage pickup.
Yeah, but then do we know what the balance is after the 1,000 is spent on?
That's 1,500. The other 500 is coming out of the
Which man?
waste.
Sorry, I thought it was in.
It doesn't say. Yeah, but it's-
Oh, sorry, it's approximately $500 plus additional. Something for each of T, but then we get that.
Councilor,
Sorry.
Just a further comment that the folks in Sweeper have done an amazing job of fundraising for further pickleball court, et cetera, et cetera. I'd love to support them with this request.
Okay, any other questions, Councilor?
Just a comment, is this 2 or 3 separate bins for
Yeah.
recycling that? You'll find you'll still have to sort through it. People
Well-
just can't read.
I do that every week.
Yeah, so do I.
So that actually raises a question, doesn't it, is, especially with producer responsibility and this being an institution or actually would fall under the not eligible for service. So somebody's gonna have to actually take it home with them and put it out with their own. That's, as long as people are aware of that. And the fact that Councilor Pickard's willing to do it forever, I think is a good thing.
So the beauty of it is that when the weather turns in November, you can take the garbage cans and put them away. That works really good, so. No, to answer your question, I misled you. This is for a bin just for garbage.
Okay.
We have blue boxes for recycling.
Yeah, okay.
So in 2027, somebody has to take all that home. Unless it fits.
Yeah.
Roads department.
So garbage, Adam will bring a report forward, I suspect in the next week or 2 or a month. On the future of garbage, so that's off. So the question for council and recommendation by the staff is that we fund $1,000 from the Energy Innovation Grant and $500 or $527 from the Waste Management Reserve. You have a mover? Moved by Thurston, second by Pickard. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that's good. CO 67, the Mount Elm Santa Claus Parade. Really good.
Sorry, I'm just looking at who changed the resolution to motion by.
Thurston, second by Pickard.
Sorry,
Okay.
just needed, I amended the motion just to include the, sorry.
Okay, so now we're at Santa Claus Parade. And you're recommending that you should report and authorize.
Yeah, this report is just to bring forward a request to council to seek their authorization for the Mount Elgin Santa Claus Parade, which is scheduled this year, Saturday, December 21st at 6 p.m. We are also asking that key members who've been involved in the planning be appointed to the committee for 2024 to take on the planning and host the parade. So that would be Bill Wilford, Travis Cuthbert, and Adam Kraus. I guess the parade has gone on for a few years now on more of an informal basis, and we would like to endorse an authorization going forward for the event. We've also had some conversations among staff about potentially the need to establish a policy for this type of community event taking place in other areas within the township. And we are asking for council support or direction on that as well for us to put together a policy on that and bring it forward for consideration.
Okay. Any questions on this report? Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is Plank Line too big of an obstacle to overcome in terms of being able to extend it out to, say, the golf course?
Yeah, they really didn't like us crossing there. We reached out to MTO a few years ago, we did cross, and then they were really hesitant to give any permission, any authority. They wanted to close detours and everything else, and we just came up with a map that's within the report that we'll rest ready.
It's just unfortunate because it'd be nice to include the entire village, not just part of it.
There was a lot of hurdles pushed back. Pardon me. There was a lot of pushback from MTO.
Well, I understand Councillor Yim's comment. I would also say though, that if you look at the parade in Woodstock, Ingersoll, Townsend, anywhere else, the vast majority of people don't get it going down their road. They actually have to go to another road to look at it. So to a certain extent, yeah, it'd be nice to be able to go across. But the reality is that most cities have a relatively straightforward route, and not everybody gets to sit in their front yard to watch it. So you have to kind of shove yourself into somebody else's front yard. So we have a motion to for the recommendations. Moved by Gillis, second by Brookner. Results of Council Thomas, June 4th, 2024, 2024. Mount Elgin Santa Claus Parade as information for the council authorized 2024 Mount Elgin Santa Claus Parade to proceed on Saturday, December 21st, 2024 at 6 p.m. with the village of Mount Elgin, within the village of Mount Elgin, and appoint Bill Wolford and Travis Guthrie and Travis to the planning committee for the 2024 budget parade, and with the appointment for the event ending on December with the appointment for the event ending on December 22nd, 2024. And further, the council provide recommended staff bring forward a policy for council consideration in relation to future parades and similar events taking place within the township moving forward. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Other discussion items, and Councillor Pickard, you're the first one here on the energy report. Anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I'd like to say a few words. So our committee, we meet once a month, and I don't know if you have a chance to read our minutes from our meetings or not, but over the years, we've done quite a number of projects. I guess we've had some very successful projects over that last 4 or 5 years in particular. Well, one of the reports we look at is this one that I had included with the minutes. It's kind of where the rubber hits the road, to say. This talks about all our buildings and what the energy use is for those buildings. And eventually it'll give you our greenhouse gas emissions and so on. So you can see in 2019, very high figure. So we have reduced considerably up until 2022. You can see reductions, some huge reductions in some of our facilities, namely this Durham shop, which has become a real success story with the new heating system in there and LED lights and so on. The other success story being the street lights. This report doesn't go back far enough when the street lights were changed to LED. So you can see the impact that we've had. It's kind of a good news story. So the reason I included this is so that everybody can look at the facilities that they're associated with in the various wards, see how you're doing. Because this is what we do at the committee. It's not all about putting insulation in or knocking windows. We're trying to keep track of how each of our facilities are doing. We've made recommendations. We've done energy audits in a lot of our facilities. We've still got a few left to do this year. The energy audits often make recommendations for ways we can improve. We also had an electrical audit done. Tim Smith did those for us. And he also made some recommendations in ways we can improve. I got a call into Brownsville Community Hall because they went up quite a bit in 2023. Originally thought maybe it was COVID. But then the other halls didn't go up that much. So Paul, we're kind of looking at you over the next couple of months to see we can find out what's going on there. Both your electricity and your gas have increased significantly. Now, we have put new thermostats in a lot of the buildings that can be controlled through Wi-Fi. So I just don't know quite what's going on there, Paul. So I'm just going to leave that with you to figure out.
I know one part might be there's two different individuals that rent the kitchen for processing jams, jellies, and cookies and bakeries. So that could be why there's a significant jump there.
Yeah. Anyway, I just thought you'd be interested in seeing this. Overall, we've had a huge impact in our greenhouse gas emissions. This doesn't say anything about our fleet. As we haven't had much impact there. It's a pretty tough one to tackle. Although we do have a couple electric vehicles, but not enough. Not a lot accomplished with the fleet, but we are on the right track. We've reduced our greenhouse emissions over the past 5 years. In this report, it actually goes back farther than 2019, but in this report, you can see the impact we've had in the last 5 years. So it's a good news story. And for more information, you can go on our website because we do have an energy management plan. I don't know how many of you got on our website now. Put your hands up if you have. One. We do have an energy management plan, which we update periodically, which we're required to do by the province. And we've set goals for ourselves in that plan to continue to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 1.5%. That's a pretty healthy target. Very hard to do because what you're looking at here is basically the low hanging fruit. And that made a huge difference. LED lights have made a huge difference. The new Beachville Fire Hall going extremely well there with that new facility. LED lights and with the solar on the roof, our bills have been remarkable. With that added to the building, so still take 30 years to pay for it, but that's what it is. So if you have any questions, I can try to answer them. I just thought you'd be interested in seeing this and maybe want to share it with your committees when you're out about the hall meetings.
Any questions for Councilor Bernard? Thanks for putting this together, Tim. I think this would show dollars. And that's interesting too, but as you said, the one that sort of stands out to me is if you look at streetlights, cost of streetlights and repairs and the energy used before LED to today, probably 2/3 or half where we were, which is that was probably the best thing we've done. Anyways, I need a motion then just to receive the report of information. Moved by Thurston, second by Way. Any discussion? None. All those in favor? Opposed? That carried. So I think we're down to budget deliberations. So, Rob, are you leading us?
Page 7 in your binder. Okay. We are at an overall increase in the building service operations. We have increased the building permit revenue, 250,000 to 260,000. Being conservative. And then the rest of the increase is due to its wages. So we had a change in the allocation of wages for the building inspector. Generally, years past, his time was split between drainage, building, and facilities. But this year, having full-time facilities technician on staff, we have reallocated the time, his wage to 50% building and 50% drainage. That's the main increase to the overall building department. We are continuing to contribute to a vehicle replacement reserve of $9,000. Taking questions.
Any questions on the building permit? Is it 50%, what are we doing with Daniel? It's 50%.
Yes.
As well, okay.
So last year he was only at 30% allocated to building.
Okay. Any questions on anything building? Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, so then on page 75, Brooke, line 101. Is that 13% increase, is that the difference in allocation? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Councilor.
Logistical one, Mr. Mayor. Does the CBO have anything to do with drainage?
He oversees the drainage superintendent.
The manager of that department, so.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on this? None. I read this right, then year-to-date actuals were $127,000 to the bill. Which would go into the building reserve. Okay. Okay, and the subject, same thing, we actually made a little bit on budget.
Yes. And year to date, we're on schedule for the revenue for the department fees for septic as well. It's coming up to the same.
Any other questions? Seeing none. Who will be taking us next?
Let's go to drainage. Page 1. The biggie. So wages are estimated at a 1% full increase. Under professional services, this is where we're capturing the potential consultant fees, costs that we just heard about tonight. We've included the $43,000 in this budget, which will be offset by the modernization reserve. And then the clean out of Great End Pond, phase 1, $75,000 estimated cost has been built into this, creating a labor draw, the new stormwater management reserve if this moves forward. Oxford County came to council and requested us to share in the cost of a strip drains. Not $100,000. This is also captured under the contract. Upper Thames, we continue to budget for their annual grant for dam studies for $4,000. However, in 2025, there's this additional expense for the emergency avian capacity repairs for an estimated total of $37,000. And in 2024, there was a report brought to council, which they approved to fund a venture for the green range. So that has been set up through the township's working capital reserve, in the amount of 50,000 each. We will see the first payment be returned to the township on the final tax bill of 2025. That amounts to 11,907. That will go back into the working capital reserve. You have no capital projects and no equipment purchases or expenses. Page 136 is just capturing all of the reserves. Our annual levy for future equipment of $5,000, the green road train, and then the stormwater management plan. So I did estimate, if we're to move ahead with this plan, to have the $40,000 coming back in to that stormwater reserve that will be created. That's just based on the $72 per property, 6 months.
Any questions on this? Councilor Wood.
How many years is the Green World drained back? 5? Okay, thank you.
Councilor Gillis.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, just a question about the dam in Centerville and these emergency basket repairs, like, do we know that we're in for this, or what, is there a bigger plan here, or dare I ask more?
Councilor Wood, tell us what's happening now.
I believe in 2025, we're gonna do a dam safety review, I believe. So maybe this will be put on hold. I can find out on Tuesday when I'm in London. Okay, but I'm pretty sure that
I think it's gonna be 2026, isn't it? For the actual review, the dam study.
How I say that, the dam study.
That's all I see.
Yeah, no, you're fine. No, you're fine.
So, I think we brought a report forward to council regarding the potential expenses related to this particular drain or dam. If, as we work through should it be decommissioned or should it be? So there will be more, yeah, conservation authorities did discuss this year to include 36,000 in our 2025 budget. So that's why it's for this.
Councilor Figure.
Yes, Brooke, what is the new stormwater management reserve?
So that's what would be created if you were to move ahead with the proposed $5 million.
My question is, we can't for 75,000 in already.
For the clean out of the pond, we need to overdraw on this reserve in order to pay for that. That'll be our start.
This reserve would be a negative $118,000.
Yeah.
The first day.
No, 75, the 43 would be coming from modernization.
Eventually, though, it should come back from the,
Sure, yeah.
so. That's what set it up. I just asked on this for the bid. I thought the annual grant. Upper thing, 5,500.
it actually it's down to 4,000, but I'm pretty sure in the budget in 2025, it's allocated to pay them $37,000. And I thought it was for a dam safety review.
It's a Gabion basket and the annual fee.
Yeah, I'll ask him. I didn't think there was a Gabion basket repair. I thought it was a dam. Just a dam study review. That's what I thought it was. I'll find out on Tuesday and let you know when I get back.
Okay, any other questions on, Councilor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On page 136 under capital, main capital project bid for 2025. What about township portion of the strict drain?
Contracted out.
It's under contract and it's spent. It's not ours.
So you have a record, sorry.
Where's Mr. Walton's fees in here?
That's the 43,000.
That's the 43,000?
Yeah.
Okay. Can I ask? Go ahead. How much have we paid him so far?
Really? Oh, you're looking at, okay, right.
We could have 150,000 in this stormwater before we even collect the dollar.
Well, no, 75 of that is for cleaning out the,
Yeah, well, that's included. 75 for Rob and 75 for the cleanup.
okay, yeah,
If you can,
go ahead.
if you compare it to what, if you look at drainage and engineers reports for specific municipal drains, there's usually a significant cost with contained within those drainage reports for engineering fees. So this is somewhat similar in it's, we're creating a system of for the future for those drains, and we're paying an engineer to assist us with that process. So I realize, like, I think there was a report that went to council originally in stage 1 of what that cost would be. And then moving forward, with stage 2, stage 3, similar to what Zora has done. Now Zora was fortunate with their stage 1 and that they had a large developer in Thamesford who was willing to pay the fee. So the municipality ended up doing that particular work, but they did with the rest. So
far this year, we've paid him $9,500 in 2024.
But the contract, wasn't it for all of the 30,000 for phase
Yeah.
1?
For phase 1 and phase 2, in the 2024 budget, we had budgeted 32,000.
Phase 1 and 2, so,
Balance of phase 1 and phase 2.
okay, come together.
So then in that regard, where are we in that process? Have we completed phase 2 now?
We're in phase 2.
That's what he's talking about today.
So this is phase 2 plus a portion of phase 3, the 43,000. So we'll bring forward the report with the breakdown of all of them. So
Okay, thank you. Anything further than on the drainage? Councillor Booker.
Just a question, the drain maintenance levy, 40,000, is that to start that?
Yeah.
Okay, so just was there's no previous, so I was just wondering where those.
Good. Anything further on drainage? Did you, anything on page 137 raised? Anything on page 137, Councillor Craiger?
What does the drainage levy go in this budget? Where's the income?
Where is it?
Yeah, I can't find the one.
It's 178. So on page 138,
Oh, I see it now. This is
drain
40,000.
maintenance fee.
Yeah.
178, that's a revenue account, at 40,000.
So we're only bringing in 40,000 in 2025.
Yes, it would only be for half of the year by the time we get
So it
started.
take us almost 2 years to pay for the engineer's report.
No, year, it's a year, it's only half a year.
This is half of the year.
Oh,
We're
right.
just taking an average
Year.
cost of.
So the first year we collect is just to pay for the engineer.
Yeah.
That's why staff are putting it on modernization rather than this. We can further work out later. Okay, anything else on that, sir? And the superintendent's grant is for a third of the drainage superintendent.
It's 50% for drainage superintendent.
50%?
And a third grant for that more properties get. For from OMAFRA. For repairs. And capital costs, so it's netted off with the reward. The drainage is 50, OMAFRA will pay 50% grant on the drainage superintendent's wages.
But needs to come back for further, all right. Anything further on drainage? On the 139? Seeing none, I think we're ready then to go into closed session. Marcel, you want to just come up to the table there and we'll get rid of that. Back to the